Hello, this is Pin Alert, your weekly roundup of COVID-19 developments happening across Africa. This week's stories include Ghana's trailblazing lockdown measures, updates from South Africa, and how one African country is using lessons learned from the Ebola crisis. On Monday, Ghanaian President Nana Akufo-Addo announced he was lifting lockdown measures in two of Ghana's largest cities, Accra and Kumasi. The decision comes after 3 weeks of enforced lockdown measures focused on combating COVID-19. The decision also makes Ghana the first African nation to relax its lockdown measures at a time when other African countries like Nigeria, South Africa, Zimbabwe and Uganda are extending theirs. Within Ghana, there have been mixed reactions, with some supporting the president's decision, while others question whether the shift could have been done slowly. Akufo-Addo said his decision was based on Ghana's improved ability to undertake aggressive contact tracing of infected persons, enhancement of capacity to test, and expansion in the number of treatment and isolation centres. Despite the relaxing of lockdown measures, however, bans remain on large gatherings. Schools will remain closed and people are still encouraged to wear masks and practice social distancing when out in public. North of the continent, in a prison in Ouarzazate, Morocco, 68 positive cases of COVID-19 were confirmed. Earlier this month, Morocco released over 5,000 prisoners in order to reduce the spread of the virus in its prisons, in line with similar measures seen in other countries. Midweek, more than 70,000 members of the South African National Defence were deployed across the country to enforce lockdown measures after South Africa's decision to extend its lockdown. On Thursday, the World Health Organization commended South Africa's overall efforts in tackling COVID-19.
There is a tremendous amount of innovation going on in Africa in general. And again, it is interesting the way in which South Africa is bringing the disease under control and how African countries are actually in some ways showing the way.
Friday saw the Kenyan government's Health Chief Administrative Secretary, Dr. Rashid Aman, speak to confirm that no talks had occurred between the Kenyan government and United Kingdom government about conducting COVID-19 vaccine trials in Kenya.
About the Oxford University vaccine trial, I have equally read this in some of the media spots. As a government, we are not aware at all about the interest of this team to come and work with the government of Kenya in testing this vaccine. We are not aware.
Dr. Aman further stressed that for this to happen, the adequate procedures must be followed. His comments were in response to a BBC report which suggested that a research team, which had begun vaccine trials with volunteers in Oxford, was also working with researchers in Kenya to explore the possibility of a vaccine trial in the country.
They've also developed vaccines against plague, malaria. Now, if they don't get early, quick results in the UK, they're considering a trial in Kenya where the epidemic of coronavirus may well be on the rise.
Lastly, Rwandan President Paul Kagame warned that without coordinated action, some African economies could take a generation to recover from the effects of COVID-19. He stated that African countries need at least $100 billion in support, but noted that even countries in the West were not injecting this amount into their own economies. This comment comes as the World Bank predicts that Africa will have its first recession across the entire continent in 25 years. Rwanda is yet to report a coronavirus-related death in the country and was the first African country to impose a lockdown, following quick closure of its borders with Burundi, Tanzania, Uganda and the Democratic Republic of Congo in March. The country's successful fight against COVID-19 is being attributed to how well the country is implementing lessons learned from the 2018 Ebola crisis. That's it for this week's Pin Alert. We are Pin Africa, and these are some of the top stories from Africa over the past week.